last episode of the Dead Girl in the Pit, I ended with my return to the abandoned building where the young girl was murdered in order to photograph the strange occult symbols that surrounded where her naked corpse was found. The most prominent of these being the sigil of the Archangel of Death, Azazel. If you've been following this series up until this point, you've heard me mention several times that things are about to get biblical in my investigation into this deplorable and utterly heinous crime. I can honestly say, knowing what I know now, I wish I had never looked into this matter. I warn you, once you watch this, you'll never be able to forget. Cosmic horror is real, and we are mere characters in an age-old story of good versus evil that most are not even aware exists. I'm going to give you a peek into the strange reality that exists just below the periphery of our ability to perceive, a world of shapeshifters, human-shaped shadows, biblical angels appearing out of thin air, a secret bloodline of real vampires, and the white-skinned giants that rule over our world until the return of God Almighty, which, if my interpretations of Scripture are correct, is about to occur. I'm Jason, the Dead Man Walking Cataldo, and I wanted to welcome you to the weird world of Douchecoded.
What happens when you dig too deep?
My name is Jason Cataldo. In 2019, while investigating the ritualistic gang rape and murder of a local girl, which was covered up by police, I stumbled on one of the greatest conspiracies in human history. Since then, I've been receiving death threats online and in person.
When I know people would kill to keep hidden.
This channel is the only thing keeping me alive. This is
Douchecoded.
When I had returned to the abandoned building in order to take more photos of the crime scene after my phone had been stolen by the beautiful young woman I spoke of in the last episode, that was some sort of plant sent by this secret satanic sex cult to steal all the evidence I had been collecting about their existence. Angry and heartbroken, it renewed my resolve to continue digging into this strange case, and in February of 2019, I would return to the pit with a quote-unquote friend to photograph the grisly, horrific scene one more time. I entered the area she was found dead in with my phone in hand, with the intent of documenting the photographic evidence I thought I needed in order to force the police to reopen this investigation into what I knew was a rape and homicide that I assumed was simply swept under the rug in order to save the county money, because this girl was homeless and mentally ill and no one really cared about her. I didn't know her well, but, I still cared about what happened to her because it's just the sort of person I am. I don't like people preying on the weak, and I'm disgusted by injustice. The abandoned building was covered inside and out with 20 years of graffiti. However, oddly enough, the graffiti I had gone to photograph around the pit that depicted the strange symbols and sigils that I had recognized from the various occult books that I had read over the years were gone. Someone had gone into this abandoned building and scrubbed off a dozen occult symbols that had surrounded where a young girl was murdered. Who enters into an abandoned building and does this? None of the other graffiti was touched. Only this one spot was the graffiti scrubbed away. You could actually see evidence of the brush bristles having scratched away at the paint. Whoever had done this, and it was likely several people, had spent a lot of time and effort making sure those symbols were removed. They knew I'd be back, and they didn't want me having those symbols on film. Frustrated and angry, my quote-unquote friend and I were leaving, and he told me it would be better for my health if I stopped looking into this. Later, I would find out this so-called friend was just another plant and a member of this strange cult at the street level where they participate in drug and sex trafficking, which is controlled by the upper echelons of this world-spanning and extremely powerful criminal cabal. As we left the building, and this is where things begin to grow stranger and stranger, some sort of force came over me, and it was almost as if I was being possessed by someone or something. It caused me to stop dead in my tracks and say, and I remember this quote word for word, "In 2 weeks' time, I will see the enemy of mankind at this very spot." I'd never had anything like this happen to me before, and I was just as dumbfounded and awestruck as my friend as he stared at me with a wide-eyed look of exasperation and surprise, clearly evident. I knew something strange was going on. Over the next few weeks, due to circumstances beyond my control that I now realize were orchestrations being implemented by this shadowy puppeteer that has saw to it to ruin my life, I would end up being kicked out of my apartment illegally, hit upside the head with a brick and robbed for several $1,000s, with the police saying there was nothing they could do about it. Lost my job totally out of the blue, and I was unfortunately forced to begin staying at a local men's shelter while I looked for a new apartment and job. These weeks were difficult, and there were a few strange events that occurred, but nothing like what would occur on the night of March 9th of 2019 while I was walking to a friend's house after having had a few beers and dinner at a nearby bar. I decided to take a shortcut to his house that led me right by the abandoned building. It was about 9 p.m. as I turned the corner that led to the shortcut path. I had noticed someone had taken a brown cloak, almost like a monk's robe or habit, and they fixed it to a makeshift cross and stuck it directly on the path. I walked this path quite often, and I had never seen it before. I made a mental note of it as I reached for the flashlight I typically kept in my pocket. This was a brand new tactical flashlight designed for self-defense. As I walked the path, I happened to turn and look behind me and this is where things become very difficult for me to speak about, because I still have no idea what the hell I was looking at or what I was about to see. How many of you are Lord of the Rings fans? How many of you remember what the Eye of Sauron looks like? Now, how many of you have seen something that looks identical in fucking person floating in the air about 300 feet above your head and staring at you? I'm not kidding. Now, before I continue the story, I just wanted to share with you this image captured by the Hubble Space Telescope of a star, quote-unquote star, called Fomalhaut. The name Fomalhaut, by the way, means the great evil above. Pretty strange name for a star that looks exactly like the freaking Eye of Sauron. The word Sauron having its origin in the word Saturn, which is where our word Satan comes from. What I saw looked identical to this Fomalhaut star, but a smaller version of it. I had no idea what I was looking at, but my gut feeling was that this thing was nothing I wanted to have any further interactions with, and began to run down the path right towards the abandoned building where I would come face to face with the strangest series of events that I imagine anybody has witnessed in 1,000 or so years. Now, before I move on, I just want to point out the fact that I'm not LARPing. You know, I was accused of this when I first began talking about these events publicly. I actually had to Google what LARPing even meant. I had no idea at the time. Now, I know everything I'm saying is difficult to believe, and a lot of people watching my videos are just going to assume this is some sort of augmented reality game or something of the sort. That is not the case. All of this really happened. All of this is really happening. You need to wake up. You need to listen to me. Every single part of this series is honest and true to the best of my knowledge and ability to tell, and the only reason I'm telling it is because of the number of death threats I've been getting over the last few years. They're so numerous that I basically stopped leaving my house except for groceries, and I now work from home because I'm absolutely certain I've been marked for death by this cult for revealing their existence to the wider world. Now, I was running, but I was not scared, not fearless, but not afraid. So, you know, somewhere in between, I pulled that tactical light and I flicked the switch, you know, only to have this brand new, literally brand freaking new, less than a week old tactical flashlight. It literally fell apart in my hand. Like, every individual piece fell apart. Every single piece fell apart, okay? I didn't have time to worry about what the hell had just happened as I hopped over a barbed wire fence looking for a place to hide from this freakish Eye of Sauron thing that was following me, even as I questioned my very sanity. At the time, I had no idea that this thing was actually pushing me towards that building with a very specific purpose and intent. Kneeling behind a pile of scrap metal and broken bricks, my laptop that was in my backpack turned off, not connected to the internet, somehow turned on by itself and began playing a section of the Book of Enoch. Specifically, Enoch, Book 1, Chapter 10, Verse 8. The whole of the earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. Again, I want to stress the fact that my laptop was turned off inside my backpack and not connected to the internet. Somehow it turned on by itself, connected to the internet, and started playing the Book of Enoch. What the literal fuck? Now, excuse my language, I do apologize. At this point, I began to freak out, and I really started to regret ever looking into this girl's murder, as I had no idea this was going to lead to something this strange, you know. Now, I opened my bag, and I reached in to turn off my laptop and grab my new phone in order to take some pictures of this weird glowing eye entity that was still floating about 500 yards away from me, and it looked like it was literally patrolling or scanning the area like it was some sort of sentient being. Unfortunately, my brand new phone was gone. I seem to have that happen to me a lot. I've probably had in the last 3 years 20 to 25 phones just up and vanish. Now, I had pulled my laptop out. I was going to use its built-in webcam, but it immediately died and refused to turn back on, even though it was just active and playing the Book of Enoch. I know all this sounds crazy, but these beings, they're angels. They're fallen angels. They're like gods. They're literally the pagan gods, and they are capable of manipulating electrical signals and even reality itself through their strange quantum magic science. From where I was perched, I could see the area of the building where the girl's body was found, and there was some sort of giant glowing pink ball of light in that spot. It was just floating there. It was so strange. It looked like the sun, but it was pink, and it was extremely bright, but the light was not moving beyond the periphery of the sphere of light. It should have been lighting up that entire building, but it wasn't. It was so very strange. I was beginning to think that I had been drugged at the bar, or I had fallen and hit my head, and this was all happening inside my mind. I know now that's not the case. Not knowing what to do, I noticed a few feet away was a ladder leading onto the roof of the building I was huddled against, and not being able to go back the way I came due to the floating freak ball of satanic light from hell thing, I decided to go up the ladder and hop off the other side of the building, and intended to hightail it over to my buddies, where I planned on drinking myself into a stupor on the box of wine his wife usually kept hidden in the back of the fridge. Unfortunately, I'd never make it to my friend's house that night. And now, as I rushed up this ladder, again, I have a very difficult time speaking of these events because they make no sense. And I had said this in other videos. If you're watching this, please, if you have any idea what the hell was going on, or you think you know, or just want to chime in, leave some comments, interact with me. You know, I'm creating these videos to create a dialogue between myself and the viewers, because I really want to know what the hell is going on right now, and I would hope that you do too. It's really time to wake up. We've been living in a lie. Right now, there's fallen angels trying to enslave the human race and turn us into nothing more than farm animals, and if you just sit back and relax doing nothing, they're going to win. And in doing so, bring down the wrath of God on us. And I'd rather not see that. I kind of like being alive. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to see God blow up the world, because that is literally what God told Noah God was going to do the next time God destroys the world. Now, as my head peeked over the last rung of this ladder I was climbing, I began pulling myself up on the roof, and my gaze focused on a 4-foot tall metallic object floating about 3 feet off the roof, back and forth like it was patrolling the area. It looked like some sort of Star Wars astromech android. I am not kidding. It looked like freaking R2-D2 kind of. I was absolutely certain I was either losing my mind or about to be abducted by aliens. Now, in the next episode of The Girl in the Pit, things get even weirder as I come face to face with 2 archangels, 3 undead shadow demons, one of Satan's shadow daughters, and the devil himself. Although I have a feeling I'm not going to live long enough to finish this series, at least not in my current corporeal form. Now, a word of warning to anybody watching this: you need to begin stockpiling food and water, ammo, medicine, everything else you're going to need when society begins to collapse under the combined weight of those 200 fallen angels who rebelled against God Almighty and had been working for thousands of years to reestablish their stranglehold over the destiny of the human race. This is happening. The Nazi, Canaanite, quote-unquote, false Jews of the book of Revelation are taking over the world right now and are intending to enslave you and your family. The New World Order is real. It's right around the corner, unless we try to stop it, or at least get them to be a little bit nicer. That concludes this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you stuck around this long and you haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button. It makes me want to make more videos when I actually see people watching them. I just can't understand how there are YouTubers out there that talk about the most inane and idiotic topics imaginable that have millions upon millions of subscribers, whereas people like me that are actually trying to prevent Armageddon have a real hard time getting any subs. But for those of you that have subscribed, I want to thank you. I'm getting ready to do some new stickers. Those that subscribed early on, the stickers are in the mail. You should be getting them in the next week or so. If you'd like to get some cool stickers, all you got to do, give me an email at douchecoded@gmail.com. And I'll tell you what you got to do in order to get some neat douche-coated stickers. I want to thank you for your time. You all have a blessed day.